Can you hear me now? I started, for some reason, my mic muted and there was a slight problem with the signal. I don't know what's going on. Hope we are all doing well out there. It is the Sunday, the 30th of January, 2022. Days are certainly cropping by, aren't they? This January is pretty much finished. This year is just flying by. So what we're going to be talking about a little bit later is crop rotation. I've had a lovely video, sent in from Polythene. Please excuse the sound of the heater. I've got the heater on because I've got a shed door open. You can't quite see it because Roxy is just outside that door. She's not coming in, but I know she's just out there. Anyway, yeah, we're going to be talking about crop rotation in just a minute. I'll go through what I've been up to over this last week. But first of all, let's see if anybody is actually watching out there. So first of all, Oracle is joined. Good evening to you, as is Ballycillian. Good evening to you. Excuse me. Turbo Stream. Good evening from the fireside. Keeping myself warm and on a cold January evening. What else have we got? Philly SPB has joined. Good evening to you. Who else? Rebecca Hawkins has joined. Good evening to you. Roxy has just run in and now she's run out again. She's probably stolen something. What else have we got? Oracle is saying, can everyone please like the page? Indeed, please do give us a thumbs up. Hargrave Gas, evening everyone. Hope you've all had a good week. Good evening to you. Digwell Green Fingers, yowza. How are we all? I'm very well. Hope you are well. Adrian, good evening to you. Hope your wife is well. A update would be great. Amanda, good evening all. I hope you're well. I popped to Wilco's today and got my seed potatoes and lots of lovely flower tubers and seeds. Yeah, Wilco's are certainly in. The seed potatoes coming in, which is something I want to talk about next week, is whether you chit or not your potatoes. So yeah, please do that. What have I missed something? Not sure. Anyway, I'll come back to that in a bit. Stuart Jackson, good evening and to you and the Veg Grower Army. Hope all is well. And yes, you can hear me. Steve has joined. Good evening to you. Anna Jones has joined. Good evening to you. Ian McCragan has joined. Good evening to you. Graham Arnold, good evening to you. Beatrice, good evening to you. Who else have we got? Ian Beddoes, good evening to you. How's the dry time? Asking Adrian. And Adrian said 16 weeks. Indeed, that is very, very good going. What else have we got? Turbo Stream is saying, I meant to record a video this week, but got involved in clearing a red currant bush behind my shed, ready for the big slabs that the committee want to lay. We've got some photos about that coming up a little bit later on. Steve is saying, so chillies today, the first bit of sowing for 2022-1. I think it's meant to be 2022. I can hear Roxy barking. Adrian, wife update, now home with lots of drugs, lots of rest, angina confirmed, and part blocked arteries, talking to the consultants more. Well, at least she's on the mend and the worst of it is over. Money Boots, good evening to you. Hope you are well. I'm cheating my potatoes from Stuart Jackson. Save that for next week, Stuart. Richard Golden, good evening to you. And Early, good evening, Richard. I trust you're well. Mowed the lawn today, first time since November. I felt the first sign of spring today, did you? Certainly it's been a nice weekend for it, hasn't it? Weather is certainly improving. The days are getting longer. Evenings are starting to feel like we're getting light in the evening. So, yeah, spring is just around the corner, as they say. One more month of winter. Now, what have I been up to this week? Well, I have been sorting out my van to get out as much cardboard as I have. If anybody that listens to the podcast will know I have this saying that I hoard as much cardboard as I can to lay down on my bed. So I went down the allotment Haven't been down the allotment this weekend, but went down the allotment in the evenings, laid down lots more cardboard to act as a mulch, and I found some compost that is being sold cheap. So I went and bought that. I've added that into lots of beds. So that's also looking pretty good at getting the allotment there. Yesterday, I sowed some garlic at home. I was sent some garlic from Thompson and Morgan to trial. I've sown it in some beds at home, and looking forward to seeing how that does. And I've been sowing a lot more seeds. And then today, I've been doing a bit of a tidy up again. I keep seeming like I tidy up everything up, but I just feel it's been a month of tidying up, especially with the weather starting to improve now. Lawnmowers out, as Ernie said, and various other things. I think Wooks has gone indoors now, and it's just getting cold. I have to close that door in a bit. So yeah, that's what I've been up to over this last week. Please do let me know what you've been up to over this last week as well. Laura W has joined. Good evening to you. I hope you are well. Ian Beddoes, lost the top of my veggie pod last night. Luckily, only down the other end of the garden. Really blowing up here. Yes, I did hear there were some storms that hit people up north, and I hope everyone has, all my audience or anybody else, hasn't been hit too hard. But it's certainly worrying, isn't it? What I say with the veggie pod, I do have one, as many of you will know. I've used the string, so if it does get blown off, it doesn't go anywhere, and that does seem to work quite well. Jenny Hullett has joined. Good evening to you. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Lovely to see you, and thank you for joining in. Please do join in with the conversation. Turbo Stream, I have some brambles to clear too on that bit. I will make shed maintenance much easier. Excellent. We will have a look at that in just a little bit later on. Steve, just about light still at 5 each evening. Won't be long until I can do a bit outside after work. Indeed, yeah, it's nice. I'm coming home 4:30, 5 o'clock at the moment. And it is nice to still have a bit of sunshine and be able to get outside. Could do with a bit of warmth. As long as it's dry, it's quite nice. But more importantly, it's getting lighter in the mornings. 7 o'clock, it's pretty light. And I'm not a morning person, if I'm honest, but I am finding that the benefit of the lighter mornings is paying off. Stuart Jackson's mowed his back lawn. I can't remember the last time I cut the grass in January. My wife said to me today, it seems very warm for January. I don't know if anybody else has felt that, but I thought about it, and it does seem a little bit warm. It's stormy here when the wife has the baked beans. Oh, indeed. Yeah. Money Boots is saying to Ian that he puts a bungee over the top of a veggie pod when strong winds are forecast. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, actually. Strong winds are just something that can't be helped. Rebecca is also looking forward to getting out after work. I think we all are. There's just something nice about working in the evenings after work, isn't it? Out in the garden, spending an hour or two just out in the garden or on the allotment, just tending to quite a few things. Turbo Stream, this week I picked up chitted red kale and ruby chard I sowed a couple of weeks ago for microgreens. If you grow microgreens, you don't need to prick them out. You just use them as they are when they are small. Digwell, I use a short 25 centimetre bungee cords on my veggie pod, one on each corner over the cover to hold it to the leg. Yeah, bungee cords seem to be the way to go. It's been cold in the Midlands today, no storms though. I don't mind the cold. I've got to say, I don't mind the cold. It's when it's windy and wet I don't like. Anyway, we'll come back to the comments in just a moment. Now, at the beginning of this year, I said we were going to use this calendar, read off what it says each week. And I forgot. I've forgotten since starting this up. So we're going to go back and see. Oh, hang on. Let me get rid of that. There we go. You just have to deal with that. So we've got to go back. This week, which would have been I think that was the one I read, where it said plant out the shallots. We planted out the shallots that week. 2 weeks ago, it said cut back all flowering shoots of winter jasmine. Remove inward growing branches of crab apples. Well, yeah, I don't know crab apples or jasmine, so I can't worry about that. Now, this past week, it says the first primroses are now beginning to appear in the garden and in favourable conditions. Established clumps of Iris ugunicularis will be flowering daily. Pick the sweet-scented lilac flowers regularly and bring indoors for fragrant spring bouquets. So I can't say I've noticed any primroses in flower this week, to be honest, but I'm sure they have been starting. But for this week coming, what does it say to do? And we will do it. Mulch the borders with thick layer of compost or well-rotted manure to give nourishment through the coming year and aid water retention in the soil. In mild weather, continue to plant deciduous trees and shrubs. Indoor bulbs that have finished flowering can be planted out in odd corners of the garden. So that's an idea of what you can be doing this week. Mulch, mulch, mulch. Something that we do quite often and pretty much on a weekly basis here at the Veg Grower Podcast Garden and Allotment. Let's go back to the comments and see what is happening. Where was I? Adrian is saying we will possibly have a mild condition later. We will possibly pay for mild condition later. Yeah, I think we said that last year. I've just realised somebody's joined me in this shed. So she's going out. I thought Moxie was going to join me. Yeah, I normally find when we get mild conditions in the winter, it does suddenly become a little bit pay for it later on in the year. Who knows what's going to happen this year? I'll dig bungee cords. Oh, Ian is saying he'll dig some bungee cords out of the garbage and wondering why he didn't think of that. Indeed. Rebecca, they have heavy snow in New York. My dad always used to say we tend to follow them 2 weeks later. Let's hope not. You know, that does make me think. We normally do get snow around this time. Not where I am. It's very, very rare I ever get snow. I mean, was it December when I finished this live show? We actually had snow. First time Roxy had even seen the snow. She keeps coming in here, but see what happens. Thursday, 4 a.m. in the Midlands, it was a question mark, cold, C. 11 degrees C, is that what it meant to be? I'm not sure. When I say microgreens, I mean I pick the leaves small for salads. Salad leaves as opposed to microgreens. Good enough. We have lots of primroses. Very lucky. Yeah, I haven't seen any primroses, in all honesty, but I haven't been looking. So I'm sure there are lots of them out there. And Jenny goes on to say, what is everyone's opinion on chop and drop? That's a good question. Now, I think we hit upon chop and drop last week a little when we were discussing it. I've heard things about it, and I've tried it myself, but I've just felt if you're doing it on an allotment, unless people actually know what your allotment is, or you have an allotment where the committee are a bit lax with the rules, people find it untidy and therefore don't complain about it. So I'm sure it works because it's just composting in situ, but it does look untidy to those who don't know what they're doing. That's my opinion. We'll leave that out for everyone else to share their thoughts on chop and drop as well. It's not too bad in Ards, but the snow is forecast. Yeah, the snow is certainly. I haven't looked at the weather actually to see if snow is forecast here. But Nigel does say New York is a good indicator of what's to come. Oh, and he does say 11 degrees C. Sorry, it came up with apostrophe. So 11 degrees C at 4 a.m. That's pretty warm. My seedlings are coming on well. Aubergines, chilies. Also sow more chilies and potted on my strawberries this week. Talking of aubergines, the aubergines that I sowed on our grow along have all germinated. They're looking a little bit leggy, so I've got to prick them out pretty soon. They germinated quicker than I thought they were going to be, so I've got a little bit caught on that. So, but yeah, I'm going to do another grow along this month. Try and do one a week, which will be leeks. Probably be in 2 weeks' time. But aubergines, I need to prick those out, which I've got to do a little bit to show you. As I said, they are the grow along. My primroses are starting to grow, but way off flowering. Interesting indeed. Anyway, so let's get on with this discussion that I wanted to start today. I know we've gone quite into the show already about crop rotation and whether you actually crop rotate. If you listen to Monday's Just Gone podcast, I spoke a little, or I had a question about crop rotation that I thought I'd try and answer, but I found it really difficult, in all honesty, to try and get it across in words, because I don't necessarily always crop rotate in the way that we're often taught. So what I mean by that is I just try not to grow the same plants in the same place, and I try and do that. The only thing I like to think of is that I grow peas and beans, the legumes, in order to add nitrogen to the soil. Now, here I've done a very, which way am I going? This way. Very rough design of my garden beds. Very rough on this, as you can see, because, well, I keep it simple, isn't it? And I've got these 3 garden beds, which are in my home plot. I should say this. And this is what I did last year. So we had Xmas. That was the Christmas bed last year, which I'm sure you all know about. This bed here was where I just threw in whatever I had. It was mostly salads. So we had Swiss chard, tomatoes went in there, marigolds went in there, mustard is in there at the moment, and anything that I had to go in there went in there. And then up here we had the roots. So my parsnips and my carrots were in there. Now, this area here is where I keep my chicken and quails, so it gives you an idea of my rough idea of my garden bed. The original idea pre-COVID was to have 4 beds, but the chicken coop fitted on the beds. And then COVID came along and I was unable to get the chicken coop to the size that I built the beds, which is a little bit annoying, but something I've got to think about in the future. Hopefully this year I'll be able to get the bed that I thought. So what I'm going to do to rotate it for this year, let's try and get this so you can see it and I can see it. So this one here, the odd bed, as I say, at the moment it's still got mustard and it's still got Swiss chard in it. That's going to become the Xmas bed. Sorry, it's not. Excuse my terrible handwriting. This is not easy. This Xmas bed is going to become roots. So in there is going to be carrots and parsnips. And then this one that was the roots is going to become the odd. So what I've got in there at the moment, I've got a couple of rows of some garlic, as I mentioned earlier. Put that to one side. A couple of rows of garlic. I've got some shallots to go in there as well. And then there's going to be tomatoes and just a few odd things that it's not a huge bed, so I can't fit a huge amount in, but just things that I could do with growing at home. Tomatoes, perhaps peppers and some chilies. A lot of these things are going into container gardens as well. Excuse me. So that's the basic idea of my crop rotation at home. Now I have set it up. Let's quickly see what everyone is saying in the comments. Digwell, if it wasn't for the Gulf Stream, we would have the same weather as Newfoundland. Indeed we would. Indeed we would. Microclimates and things. Graham, I do rotate beds, but know people that don't, and they haven't had any problems. Now that's a very good point, because this is something that I've uncovered a lot of, is that people who don't rotate don't seem to have a huge amount of problems. But people who do rotate swear by it. I crop rotate on a 4-year cycle. Roots, brassicas, legumes, onions, potatoes, tomatoes, etc. Yeah, the 4-year cycle is what I'm trying to aim for, possibly even a 5-year cycle. On the allotment, that is, but we'll come to that in a minute. Ian saying, brought some cherry tomato carice for the veggie pod before we go away. But will they be okay sowing in May? Packet says March, April. You should be okay. I think when are you going away, Ian? You should be okay sowing tomatoes in April. But let me know when you're going away and we'll go from there. I do. Turbo Swim says he does rotate his crops. I was told by my allotment friend to do it. He worked that plot for 20 years, so I took his advice. Sadly, he died this year, so I'll carry on as he did. Yeah, it's certainly a little bit hard, isn't it, when people die that you know. Moneywicks in Meadows, at that time of year, temperatures will be good, so they will soon catch up. That's exactly right. That's what I thought. Great, thanks, Money. I haven't rotated crops for 5 years at least. That's somebody else. I thought this might happen. Some people don't crop rotate and some people do. Jenny says, I grow everything in containers as I am disabled. Not found a veg yet that doesn't mind. Yes, well, crop containers are something I'm looking at talking in 2 weeks because I'm trying to do. Well, I was moving away from growing in containers, in all honesty, but I've started to sort of want to creep back to it for some reason. I don't know why. I like growing in containers. It takes up more room, but I just like there's something about it I like. I crop rotate as I grow in 7 raised beds. I can't tell you if it makes any difference. It's just one of those things that I feel you should do. Maybe I should do a little trial to see if any difference. Yeah, it'd be interesting if there is anybody who has trialed it to see if there is a difference. Beatrice, I tend to put things in where there is space, so I haven't really rotated crops. Again, this is coming back to what I was understanding, is that some people do crop rotate, or some people just try not to grow stuff in the same place. Now, as Beatrice says, she puts things in where there is space, which is what I've done at the home plot quite often as well. But I've also given this some thought, and I said this in the podcast. In a greenhouse, if we have a greenhouse, it's very difficult to try and rotate your crops in a greenhouse. Many of us are growing tomatoes or cucumbers in a greenhouse year on year. And do we get problems with it? I don't know. It's what I'm asking. Crop rotation only reduces the risk of diseases building up. I think that's a good way of looking at it. It probably does reduce the risk of diseases building up. We're away all April, so want to be here to tend them. The May will be fine. Indeed, May will be fine for your tomatoes. Ballycillian, when I begin, I did, but now I'm doing more companion planting. I don't see the point, as all the various veggies are mixed in the same bed. Good point. Rebecca wants to ask, does everyone crop rotate just to avoid disease? Let me get my words out. If not, what are we all doing it for? For me, it is just to try to avoid the build-up of pests and diseases, because we're always told that's the right thing to do. But I also do it in the case where I use legumes to add nitrogen to the soil, or green manures. And when I come to the allotment in a minute, I'll get a bit more into that. Dig well, maybe not crop rotating and no dig go hand in hand. This is what I've wondered with a greenhouse, because I do effectively no dig in that. Does that go in hand as well? Good question indeed. I haven't drawn a detailed plan, but just a general idea not to plant things in the same bed next year. Yeah, that's a common thing. Jacqueline Arnold, lovely to see you. Hope you are well. Our old neighbour grew runner beans in the same spot every year and always outdid us. He even found some beans saved from World War II by his father, and they did better than our new ones too. And this was in the 1980s. Interesting, very interesting. So if you grow the same thing in the same area, does that ground become tailored to the plants? A good question. Stuart is still learning about crop rotation at home. I only have a small garden, so really no point. But at school, I have the space for crop rotation. Yeah, I mean, I guess a school is a good place to try and practice that in. I am finding from Gray and Arnold that I'm having to cover more with enviromesh and netting. Seem to be more things that attack the vegetables than just a few years ago. Would you say that is birds, or is that insects that are attacking your vegetables? I'm wondering if it's more birds, because I think birds are becoming certainly in the last couple of years, I'm wondering if there's less blackberries or wild foods for them, and they're starting to attack vegetables instead. I don't know. I've not noticed it myself. The last couple of years, thinking about it, we've had pretty mild winters as well, and perhaps the birds are becoming a bit more bold because of that. Crop rotation can also help when preparing the soil for the following year. That's like I say about legumes, because legumes supposedly, and I'm saying supposedly because I'm not a scientist, add nitrogen to the soil, which will then benefit certain crops the following year. And there's also some crops that help aerate the soil by creating little pathways from the roots and things. So certainly crop rotation helps preparing for next year. Same here, no blanket planting, a bit of this, a bit of that everywhere. And then Robertsons have been growing onions in the same bed for over 150 years. Well, on that note, I want to share a video that was sent to me from Polythene, I believe, and on this very subject.
Right, Richard. I think this week's subject is about crop rotation. So, can't really give you a 100% answer. Start here. This is how I grow my parsnips. This tub's full of compost. When the time comes to sow, you can see 4 holes filled with fresh compost, sow the seeds. But that's every year, so that's not crop rotation. Now we'll move around to potatoes. This is 1 or 2 potato beds. Growing potatoes in buckets. People say it's an expensive way, but yes, the first year you have to buy the compost to fill the buckets. But as I harvest it, I save the compost, and the same compost the following year goes into the bucket with a little bit of blood fish and bone or something. But again, that wouldn't be crop rotation because I'm using the soil again, compost again. So we'll move around here to 1 or 2 of the beds. Right, this is a bed that'll solely have the brassicas in it this year, my cabbages. But the sole reason being is because I've manured it and limed it, and I'm getting the pH ready for cabbages, and there wouldn't be really a lot more other things I could grow in this bed. But again, next year I'll maybe manure this bed, so not really crop rotation, it's rotating to suit the soil. So we'll move across to the carrots. Right, Richard, we'll come to carrots. I've said before, I grow my carrots in these raised boxes just because of the carrot fly. And again, first year it had to be filled, and as the parsnips, when it comes to time, 4 hole, fill with fresh compost and sow the seeds. But it's basically the same compost. These buckets agree in, the carrots agree in every year. So again, I couldn't say that would be crop rotation. So we'll move across here to show you what I mean in these other beds. Right, Richard, this is basically the way I'm trying to go from this year forth. We'll take this bed as an example. Sweet pea will be along that trellis there. Climbing French beans will be up this here, this wigwam. Now, this is what I mean about crop rotation. I'm going to have a line of onions, a line of carrots, possibly a line of beetroot, a line of carrots, and another line of onions. I'm trying to get down the line of companion planting. Trying to see will it save all the pesties and all these things coming to pass without having to use various seeds. I don't like using chemicals at all, so I'm trying to grow without using chemicals. And again, I can't crop rotate this bed because sure I have onions in it, I have carrots in it, beetroot. You can't really crop rotate when you're planting companion. Right, Richard, one of the times I was on, I said I wasn't sure what I was putting in this far bed here. 4 years in a row I've grew Brussels sprouts in it, and the reason I've grew Brussels sprouts in it is because I'm on no dig. The ground's very loose, we'll compost every year, but that's the last remaining bed that has soil in it, and the Brussels sprouts need their feet in a good strong situation. I find when you grow the Brussels sprouts in the raised beds with a loose compost, the Brussels sprouts grow. So I'm not saying I'll never get a disease, but I'm going to have Brussels sprouts in this bed again this year. So again, crop rotation, I'm not sure what the answer would be about it.
Right boys, tease up.
Right, Richard, never mind crop rotation. This is the best way to finish your day. The veg grow alright, enjoy yourselves.
Yeah, cup of tea indeed. I've got one on the go. Well, coffee for me, but yeah. I've got to say, I love that little fire. So that was interesting because I used to grow potatoes in buckets and I would reuse the compost as well. And it never did have any build-up. It never caused any problems. And this is where the whole crop rotation thing has really got me thinking, is it worth doing or not? I'll quickly go through the comments and then I'll move on to my allotment and share my thoughts on what I do down on there. So first of all, I've read that one, sorry. Allium leaf miner and flea builder never had it until flea beetle never had it until a couple of years ago. Interesting. I'm wondering if it's weather related, because the last couple of years the weather has certainly been a lot milder, in my opinion anyway, certainly down here where I am. For the crop rotator gardeners, beans are one of the veg that do not need it, as they have no dedicated diseases. Indeed, yeah. Beans, a lot of the tomatoes and peppers and aubergines can also get away with it as well, but not needing crop rotating, as can pumpkins and members of the cucurbit families. So not all plants actually do need crop rotating in this country. I think if we're in other countries, it might be a different story. TurboStream, I might try and interplant the flower bed with a few veg plants and see what happens. I'm still new to this veg growing. So TurboStream, what you're looking at is like a potager, which is something I've dabbled with in the past, but it's a French word for growing vegetables in ornamental gardens as well. Not my way of doing things, because I discovered I'm just not that neat and tidy for it to work. I'm far too messy. TurboStream says, such a well-maintained plot that. Indeed it is. I've got to say, it does look fantastic. By the way, if anybody else ever wants to send in any videos, I'm grateful for any videos I can play in on the show. Please do feel free. It's open to everyone. And it just, as long as it's garden related, I'm happy. The garden or allotment, gardening, even if it's a trip to your garden centre, anything like that, I can play it on the show, just as long as it's to do with gardening. Just make you a video, render it off, and then send it to me via WeTransfer.com to richard@veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Need to make a little skit up for that, just to explain it how it works. Stuart Jackson, after school, our leeks did not do very well. They seem to get insects inside them. Does this mean I should grow leeks somewhere else this year? So if you're getting insects inside your leeks, it's probably allium leaf miner, which is attracted by just the smell of leeks. I don't think crop rotating is necessarily going to stop that, but you might want to put a bit of netting over your leeks to stop it from happening. We'll throw that out there, see if anybody else thinks the same as me. It sounds like allium leaf miner or something else, and I can't think of the top of my head what it is. By the way, Stuart, I got your voicemail on the website. I haven't listened to it yet, but I will listen to it later on. I'm starting to question it. You got me thinking, guys. This is why I love this show so much. So much shared knowledge. Maybe no more crop rotation. It's got me questioning it as well. It's always been something I've tried to do, but then I want to move on to my allotment, which is on a slightly bigger plan. So it's a bit difficult to try and get in here. Now, I should put a line across here. So, as you know, I've got two allotments, and this is the bottom half that I've had for a longer time. And when I first got it, I started off with the 6 beds. And this is the position they find themselves in this year, because I've been there for 6 years. So we got garlic in that bed, onion in this bed, shallots in that bed, beans in that bed, ball beans and what have you, sweet corn in this bed, and then brassicas in this bottom bed. Now, I did this because these 4, the garlic, the onions, the shallots, and the boiled beans, were for overwintering. And then by the time May came round and I could get my sweet corn out, this bed was ready. And then that one just seemed to pea nicely for brassicas. Now, this is my whole allotment, because I've got a bit more to it. Well, I haven't built some beds as of yet, but I'm experimenting with. But what I would do with these 6 beds is just move them on. So this year garlic is in that bed. Next year it would go into that bed, and the onions would go into that one, and the shallots would go into that one. And that's the rotation they would do. They would just follow that rotation around. And then I've got this top half of the plot now, the newer half of the allotment, in which last year I had these 3 beds, these like an L shape here. All the rest was in pots. And in those 3 beds, I grew potatoes, which is why next year or this year, I'm growing potatoes. I've got to build some new beds, but potatoes have been grown in these other beds. This one is going to be my hugelkultur bed. So it's very rough drawing, so I apologies with that. It's very rough drawing. This bed, sorry, is going to be my hugelkultur. So tomatoes and peppers are going to go in that. Beans going in this one. What's that say? Oh, brassicas are going in that bed. And then all these 3 beds here are going to become potatoes. But it doesn't really follow the crop rotation very well. And I probably have got to think about moving potatoes down into here, or perhaps in future years, growing potatoes in buckets to move them to give them a chance to refresh. I don't know. I'm a bit sort of struggling on what I can do with crop rotating my allotment at the moment, partly because it just grows so much. Especially potatoes. I'll probably grow way too many potatoes or dedicate too many beds to potatoes, but they are a staple. And the allotment I see is growing much more of my staples. Oracle is saying to Stuart, you're the teacher, you should be teaching us. Now, teachers got to learn from somewhere. Another thing, actually, Stuart Jackson was on the Bearded Gardeners radio show the other day, or Bearded Growers. Quite an interesting little chat going on there. Graham Arnold, I have to net all my alliums to protect them from minor. Yeah, I think that's what we're saying. And 100% Richard, cover leaks with Enviromesh to stop the allium leaf minor. Thanks. Is leeks the same as carrot? If I keep in pots and keep them a metre high, the flies can't get to them. I don't think allium leaf miner has the same problem with vertigo as carrot root fly. But again, I'll put that out there and see if anybody else. But certainly covering it with Enviromesh, it will help. Well, I think it was discovered in the Midlands to Graham Arnold from Muddy Boots. We get hammered every year. What was that? Was that the allium leaf miner? Not sure. Tobestream, I did question my friend. He was adamant that crop rotation was necessary. I didn't argue because he knew far more than me, having worked at plots for 30 years. Well, that point is a good point, because that was a conversation I had with my grandfather when I was 10 years old about no dig. And before no dig was a thing, it's just something I did. And he was adamant that we had to dig over the soil every year and do all this, whereas I was just like, no, I'm just going to throw compost down. And the results spoke for itself. You know, there was no real difference. My granddad was still adamant we had to dig over the soil. Now here we are 30 years on, and no dig is a thing. Experience doesn't always mean that it's correct. It just means that that's their experience. Crop rotation is rarely applicable in a huge monocrop fields of hundreds of acres. We aren't going to get soil fertility depletion when we are fertilizing and manuring all our ground. So yeah, that's a good, that is what I was wondering, you know, crop rotation on a huge monofield or monocrop fields, of course, that's going to deplete a lot of the fertilizer and the manures. And on a small scale, is it really going to make much difference? So, for example, my beds on the allotment, I've only got like 60 centimetres between the beds, and pests and diseases can surely travel 60 centimetres to the next bed to find it anyway. I mean, this is why I had a lot of difficulty talking about crop rotation the other day, because it's so conflicting, as you guys have proven to me tonight as well. Carrot root fly is very different to allium leaf miner. That's what I thought. Sorry for not paying attention tonight, but on Channel 5 is a program about Legoland, and I got distracted over how much they do on planting and care of plants. That's actually an interesting point, Ian. Slightly off topic, but I'll just mention it. I've often said that zoos and places like Legoland, they have gardeners, they have gardens that don't get a look in. And I've always said, if you want to get a kids interested in gardening, take them to somewhere like Legoland to talk about gardening. That's a whole other discussion again, though, isn't it? Graham Arnold is giving a thumbs up to Nigel. Stuart Jackson, thanks. I do have EnviroFleece. I will talk to the children about different insects and how to protect each crop. Yeah. Anna Jones, I've never covered any of my crops until beet leaf miner and motley dwarf virus suddenly arrived in my garden 2 years ago. Never had it either before. I've got to admit, I'm useless at covering any of my crops with any type of fleece, apart from in the winter. I just find, I get annoyed when I cover my crops because I can't get in there easily to weed. And what I would do is I'll pull it off, because that 2 seconds it takes to take off the fleece causes a delay. So I've just not bothered with it. Digwell, just to upset a few, there have been several reports last year on YouTube of carrot root fly climbing up plant stands and still getting to the carrots. Interesting. Perhaps they've adapted. That's why I love this show, both sides of the argument. I always try and give both sides of the argument. I don't believe there's any right answer. I believe it's all difference of opinions, and we can all come together. That's what I want to do with this show, certainly. Alton Towers has an amazing historical garden. Yes, it does. I did actually, when I visited Alton Towers many years ago, I did actually mention the gardens that I had up there, because I was fascinated with them as well in part of the historical house. But the same, we look after a zoo at work, and they've got some amazing bananas and tropical plants grown in these places as well. And I think they often get overlooked, but I do think they are worth mentioning for gardeners. Polythene, I've been growing veg for over 40 years and still learning methods and conditions change. Indeed. Tomstream, I'm reorganising my plots so things will be rotated by default this year anyway. Indeed it is. Lego is made from plant-based plastic now anyway. And yeah, well, I think if I remember correctly, plastic was originally created from plant-based margarine or something anyway. So that doesn't surprise me. We just moved on to fossil fuels for plastic because it was cheaper and easier to do. But plant-based plastic is definitely a thing. Idaho Garden Girl has joined. Good evening to you. Sean O'Brien has joined. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. Graham Arnold, I tried companion planting last year and found that a massive help against black fly. Companion planting is something that we're going to have to discuss at some point as well. I think I'm going to have to discuss it because it's something I try and do, companion planting, but I want to do it more and I want to find more people's experience. By the way, don't forget, you can call it in on 07307 135 174. I did put the link if you want to zap yourself in as well earlier, and I may have forgotten to mention it. But if you want to zap yourself in and appear on screen, that'll be good as well. This is why I listen to the Veg Army every week. Every day is a school day as I learn something new every week. Also, I've now grown vegetables I would never buy thanks to the Supporters Club. Indeed, that's probably a good segue. I'm told I need to mention the Supporters Club more often on this show. So the Supporters Club was initially done for my podcast as a way of keeping the podcast supported, so it doesn't rely on me. If I ever lost my job, the podcast can still carry on. And I charge £5 a month to my members. Each month they get a collection of seeds, at least 6 packets each month that can be sown that very month, along with a newsletter. And you get extra behind the scenes podcast as well. For those members already out there who didn't get one on Thursday, apologies. Roxy was a bit of a mischief this week. She had an operation, so she was a little bit all over the place. Now, one person that is a member and quite literally brought me into this is this guy. Hello, mate.
Hello, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, I just rang up to plug your supporters club, really.
Oh, go for it.
Well, it's just, I just put in the comments, some of the seeds that you send out, I wouldn't grow, I wouldn't go and buy. And it's like, aubergines, prime example. You sent them out last month. I must have 100 seedlings. I know it sounds bonkers, but that doesn't matter because I'll grow 3 or 4 in the greenhouse or 2 or 3 in the greenhouse, and the rest I'll sell for charity. So that's fine.
Yeah.
But you're given the great thing for me is I learn, as you know, I'm not that au fait with veg gardening. It's still new to me. So it's giving me the opportunity to grow things that I would never grow.
Yeah.
And every week you learn something different on this show. There's so many helpful people out there.
Oh, yeah, indeed. That's what I love doing this, is that there are a lot of people out there sharing their knowledge and sharing different opinions in a nice way. Nobody's right.
No, and we all give. There's a saying about a football referee. They're only ever wrong once, you know. But it's not like any other profession, if you know what I mean. People are willing to help you.
Yeah.
They're not trying to get one over on you. You know, it's like our good friend that motivated his allotment. You know, somebody would have told him not to do that if he'd have asked.
Yeah.
You know, if you got, bindweed, you don't put your rotivator in. You sit down and you pull it all out one by one. It takes you forever, but everybody's out there to help, and it's so friendly. It's so, and whichever podcast you listen to or whatever, everybody's the same. I think it's the gardening industry as well.
Oh, indeed. I agree. So what's your thoughts on crop rotations, Stuart, however?
Well, school, I am intending doing it because we've got so much room now. We've got 2 new beds, and so I will be able to grow stuff like they're brand new beds. So they've got onions or alliums in. They're sort of onions, garlic, all that sort of stuff's going into them beds. And then where I had the onions, garlic leeks last year, it will be Brussels sprouts, potatoes, and the kids haven't decided anything else yet. So it is really, well, I say that, we must have 60 pea plants in the veggie pod, which will have to come out soon because they just won't get any height in there.
Yeah.
But it's where they wanted to throw them in. They wanted to put them in, so I didn't stop them. Just when they're not looking, I'll take them out and put some more seeds in. So I've just got to be one step ahead of them. Yeah, so the beds I've started this year keeping a log of what day I sow things, what day they come up, what day I transplant them. So next year that will help me, hopefully, to sort of plan a little bit better. You know, how long things take to germinate, how long things take to get to pot onto, and you know how long it takes from seed to getting into the ground as well. Yeah. But this no dig lark is great. I love the no dig.
It does make life a lot easier, doesn't it?
Yes, but you know, like for somebody like me, my back is shot anyway. It just makes it so much easier. And I know at school I don't have a choice, but even if I did have a choice, it'd be no dig. You know, I can't expect the kids to dig over the clay soil anyway, so it's just a matter of chucking a bit of compost on the top. And now it's like the second year, it's getting that much easier.
Yeah.
So like every year it will get that much easier for them. So yeah, it's great. But at home I'm a little bit behind, but I will. I've got leeks and garlic, not leeks, onions and garlic, and I think there's some sprite plants in the garden and some Swiss chard. That's it. A few boar beans, but I just haven't had chance to get the boar beans from the greenhouse into the ground. Yeah. So I'll get there.
Yeah. So Digwell has said to you, grow dwarf peas in the veggie pod next time.
Yeah, it is again a learning curve. It was I put the seeds. You know how I work. I put the seeds on the table. They take the seeds. They sow them. Yeah. And it's a learning curve for me as much as them. So I will remember to take the meteor peas out and put a dwarf pea in. But it's, as I've probably said to you before, I use your monthly seeds for me to go and get for school.
Yeah.
So I know that what you send out will be sown this month. So then I just go down to the garden centre and get a few more. And then some goes to school, some comes here. So if I need extra to sell on them, but it's just been a godsend for me as a new veggie gardener. It's just a godsend, and I think anybody else that's done it, that's joined, will know. You know, it just gives you that kick at the backside in January when you think there's nothing to do, and there's loads to do.
There's always loads to do. Yeah, I mean, on that note,
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate everyone that supports or is a member of a club anyway, because it does really help. Rebecca says the supporters club is brilliant, makes you think out the box and challenge yourself to grow something new.
Yeah.
Which that's how I've set it up. But more importantly, is to keep supporting the podcast and the live show and keep these moving forward. I think I saw a comment. You know, I know it's a bit of an advertisement now, but got to do it at some point. Graham Arnold, I never understand why the channels that have the best information have fewer subscribers than the ones that talk rubbish. Obviously, I don't know about the ones that talk rubbish, but I think the channels there's a lot of channels out there and podcasts, YouTube channels, or anything like that have good information, but they're not getting the financial backing in order to keep moving forward. And it does cost money, unfortunately.
Yeah, or you go the other way and they're sponsored, and all you hear is about what their sponsorship is.
Yeah.
So that you've got to get that balance. I know you choose not to be sponsored, which is great, but if you do get sponsored, you've got to get the balance right, because you lose your customers, if you lose your viewers, because they don't want to hear about the product every 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, I'd agree.
Totally
agree with that.
Yeah, and I think you are the product. You and your club is the product. So, you know, thanks for that.
Yeah, no, it's all right. No, thank you for those kind words. Indeed, that's
okay.
Encouraging to hear. So got a lot of comments coming, so I'm going to boot you off. And
that's not a problem.
At some point.
Okay, take care.
Okay, take care, mate. Bye.
Bye.
There we go. Lots of comments came in at that point. I want to go through. Moneybits, gardening is a 10-volume collection. So you finish volume 1, volume 11 gets released. Indeed, it's always growing. Excuse the pun, but gardening is always growing. Turbo Stream, I learn something every week. Such a great community here. Sean gives us a thumbs up. I grew a huge amount of companion planting, lots of it edible. I also grow nettles next to my veg as black fly and aphids love them, so stay off my veg. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I like companion planting. I like nettles. The trouble is, some allotment holders don't like it, and they think it's neglected. It's a difficult one to get the balance just right. Another vote for companion planting there. To reduce motley virus, get rid of all other amplifier plants in their area, hedgerows, etc., cow pasture deal, and so on, where this is where the virus inhibits. Did I miss something from Anna Jones? I can't see that comment. I'm scrolling. Oh yeah. Sorry, I did read that one. What else have we got? That's it. Then I live next to a field. Lots of cow parsley in there. There we go. That solved that. Do the kids like sprouts for Stuart? Sorry, I didn't see that when he was here. Otherwise, I would have brought that up. Amanda, The Beginner's Guide to Companion Planting by M. Grant is a great book. I got secondhand on eBay last year. Found it really helpful, and it was only a couple of pounds. Yeah, I did marigolds and a few nasturtiums and things like that last year, and I've got to admit, the difference it made was quite noticeable. So I will look out for that book. I read that one. I read that one, but thinking of potting strawberries in a veggie pod. Anyone done that? As it was a huge success. I've not put strawberries in my veggie pod, but I know people do, and I think it would definitely work, and it definitely would help things moving forward. So true, buddy, but you will find the good ones keep their viewers, whereas this is how you must sow a cabbage types, lose as many as they gain. Yeah. I mean, I got to admit, on that note, I do struggle with making videos because I used to make videos religiously, and I didn't want to do the whole "this is how you do it." I wanted it to be more like a documentary. I just find the time spent editing. I'm useless at sitting down. I've got to be standing up and doing something, and that's part of the reason I don't do many videos anymore. I want to. I shoot loads of videos. I just never get them edited. Something I've got to rectify. Completely agree on the supporters club. Really helpful, reminding me what I need to sow. When looking at seeds today, I didn't get any veg ones as I knew Richard would send me them when I needed them. Yeah, the next months are going out tomorrow. If this chat got any better, we couldn't talk to each other as much. Yeah, well, I think we make sure the chat is always in there. Personally, I wouldn't grow perennials in a veggie pod, but that's just me, maybe. I've got to submit, I wouldn't grow perennials in a veggie pod unless I might put strawberries in. I might get a small veggie pod at some point and grow strawberries in for the veg. I might get a small veggie pod to grow strawberries and things like that in at some point, but that's a long way off. The book is great, Rebecca. They make it very simple. They will grow fine, Ian, from Muddy Boots, but will take up good growing space for a long time. This podcast is great. Muddy Boots, Mick Pulteney and Jeff Foreman are the dog danglers for information. I agree, yeah. There are some great YouTube channels out there. The best thing about growing veg is no method is 100% right or wrong. You have to mix and match methods to suit your own style of gardening. I think that's very true. It is no right or wrong way. It's just different ways. Yes, the kids asked to grow sprouts, and they are on the list for 2022. Yeah, sprouts will be sowing in the next couple of months, I think. On that note, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, a like, and subscribe, and follow, and click the bell for notification when we go live. Seems like a good point to say that, otherwise I get told off. And I also want to go through some photos that I've received this week in what I call the photo gallery. Let's go for that setup because I like it. So Stephen Ticehurst has been sorting out his seeds and created a spreadsheet of what he can do. I know Stephen is a very organised person. He's also very good with his IT, so it doesn't surprise me he's doing this at all. I'm still sticking with boxes. Turbo Stream, who's in the chat tonight, he's been sowing some seeds, and as you can see, they're just starting to appear. He mentioned earlier about some slabs and that he's gained these few slabs he's going to pot around his shed in this area that he's been clearing out and getting ready. As you can see, it's a lot of work goes in just to preparing to lay down slabs. Now, Ian Beddoes has been sharing with how his partner gets him to mow the lawn by dangling some wine in front of a lawnmower. Does it work, Ian, though? That's the big question. And, of course, it wouldn't be complete without Beddoes' humour. This week, it's a flower asking a tree stump if there's any good tree puns. And the tree stump is saying, I really love to help, but I'm stumped. Yeah, indeed. Some good jokes, as always. Most of those come from the Veg Grower Podcast Facebook group. If you're not a member, please do go and join in. A lot of people in there added to the conversation. I allow people to share blogs and YouTube videos in that as well. So please do go ahead and join up. Idaho Garden Girl. I don't rotate crops intentionally by a rigid schedule, but it seems that every year I'm changing, adding, subtracting vegetables so they get rotated anyway. Yeah, I think this is the thing that a lot of us seem to be saying out there is that it is a case that many of us are sowing plants in places where we don't grow the plants. We don't really have a schedule. We just plot it into different places. I'm going to sneeze in a minute just to warn everyone. I can feel it. I'm just hoping I've caught it. But something we have been debating, and I haven't seen anybody come up with the answer to this, is has anybody actually had any problems led or caused by lack of crop rotation? The only example that I can think of what might have been a problem is in old potato beds, where volunteer potatoes that haven't been dug out properly have left in the soil, those tiny little ones, and then they just grow on their own. And it could be a different variety that you're not aware of. I don't know. That's just where I'm thinking at the moment. Now, while we've been discussing tonight, I have actually figured out, I've been saying this is my allotment and how I could do crop rotation on these 12 beds. Well, of course, I figured it out. It's very, very simple. If I draw a line down there, I've got 4 quarters, 3 beds of each. So I can stick with my potatoes in one bed, and they might next year. These 3 beds might all be potatoes. Actually, it'll probably be these 3 beds. Thinking about it, potatoes in these 3 beds. These 3 beds would be garlic, onions, and shallots, and then these 3 beds could be sweet corn and the other stuff, the brassicas, or so on. It caused me a bit of a thought going on there, but I got there in the end, how to figure out how I could rotate my beds on that allotment. We could figure it out. Amazing just how conversation helps. Have I read this one? Get new cover from Graham Arnold for my Polytunnel. Has anyone got suggestions as to what's the best polythene to get? I don't, except the best that you can afford is all I would say. We'll throw that out there. Does anybody have any suggestion? What is the best polythene to get to replace the cover on a polytunnel? Steve is saying the same sort of thing here. No planned crop rotation, but I tend to move plants around if only to determine where they are to grow the best on the plot. Yeah. Hargrave Gas. When I lived in Bristol, I had some club root issues with brassicas. That might have even been down to lack of rotation. It was 30 years ago. I can't remember. I know clubroot lives in the soil for something like 20 years, which is part of the reason why we like to rotate the soil. But where's that working? There we go. Which is part of the reason why we try to rotate soil. I've not suffered from clubroot in my lifetime, so I don't understand. I can't talk from experience on that one, but I can see if it lasts in the soil for 20 years, I can see why it is a big problem. See what anybody else says on that. Here we go. I knew there's going to be people coming in on that question. First tunnels are great for polytunnel spares from Stuart Jackson. So first tunnels, get in touch with them. No need to rotate the beds physically. If you keep a record of what was where, then next year just grows something different. Yeah. I agree. I mean, the trouble is, I know from my own experience, I like to have dedicated beds, which is why I tend to rotate things and why I stick with beds. But I think I've figured out my crop rotation plans now. But yeah, certainly keeping a record and trying to grow something different each year. Again, that's why I find moving it around in the same pattern each year works quite nicely for me. I would recommend First Tunnels. I called up and asked them to send samples of their polythene before I ordered. The service was fantastic. Well, there we go. That's another one for, what was it? First, let me get my words out. Sorry, I'm struggling. Another one for First Tunnels full of polythene. Worth looking at, I think. Some people may not be able to rotate all crops, as some may be shaded as to what position the sun goes around their plot or garden. Indeed, that's another problem that I've thought about. And again, I come back to the greenhouse. In a greenhouse, we don't really rotate our crops. We might add new compost. It's slightly different conditions, but we don't really rotate our crops in a greenhouse. Digwell says to ask Muddy Boots about clubroot. I suspect he's probably gone to the other one now, but we'll see. If he comes back, we'll ask him about clubroot. I think my batteries are going in this mouse now. Thanks, Amanda. Which one did you go for? From Graham. Alison O'Brien. Hi all. Sorry I've been late. Hope you're all well. Lovely to see you. Amanda, I bought Supertherm 200 micron and it's done a great job. I got that from First Tunnels. Bought the tape from eBay. I really have to think about getting myself a Polytunnel at some point. So many people talk about them really well, but yeah, I've never had good experience with Polytunnels, but the cheaper ones at the bottom end of the market. Preferring instead greenhouses. We have a large pear tree at school. When should we prune it as it's going a bit wild? Prune it now. Get in there quick. And you're coming to the end of a chance of the pear tree to prune it. So where I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, something like a pear tree, it's going to be dormant at the moment. So if you can get in there, you can prune it. You can also, because there's no leaf, you can see the branches a lot easier. So where I always recommend that you start is the 3 Ds, the dead, diseased, and the damaged. Cut those out, dead, diseased, or damaged plants. Stand back and look at it, and then you want to start looking about where branches might be crossing, where they might be rubbing up against other branches. Get rid of those, and then just start looking at spaces to allow more ventilation. There was some of the certainly with apple trees, I think Monty Don said, think about it like a bird being able to fly right the way through the tree. That's probably how you want to think about it when it comes to that. This mouse is, come on, I'm getting stuck. I have been growing on my plot long enough to experience any problems. Only parsnips develop canker if I leave them in too long. Yeah, I mean, canker is just canker, isn't it? I think, like scab on potatoes, there's some things you're going to get and you just learn to ignore. And blight is one I know I will get every year. And I've just learned to not worry about it. Jenny's got to go. Thank you so much for joining us, Jenny. Please do come back and please do feel free to post pictures and videos. It'd be great to see your plot. Take care for now. Oracle, I would just cut it, wash it too, Stuart. I ordered far too much by mismeasuring, but I'm actually glad I did, as I've been using it to make mini tunnels or to cover anything of direct sowing when the weather is still a bit changeable. Indeed, yeah. I always think it's best to have too much than not enough, in my opinion, when it comes to things like that. Same as I've had to measure up for plasterwork done on my house. I overestimated. Same as work, actually. I overestimate, add a bit more, because there's always things that go wrong. And add in a grease brand around the trunk, Oracle. This is in reply to Stuart Jackson. Add a grease trunk around the bottom. Thank you, Richard. I think I must ask someone with a ladder, as it's about 20 foot tall. Yeah, that's not one you want to get the kids involved in, really, is it? Hi all. I've recently planted a pear tree along with a couple of apple trees. They don't have any branches yet. They could be columnar apples and pear trees, which are just trained to literally be a single pole. But it is early. I saw some great columnar apple trees and pear trees at Westdean Gardens. And they grow lots of them in a short space, quite close together. So yeah, don't worry, don't panic. My take on crop rotation is more to do with the soil, i.e. one type of plant will use the same nutrients from the soil each year and so will be deficient. With no dig, you don't have that problem. Yes. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I as everybody knows, I'm a no digger and I've always been no dig. It just seems to make more sense to me. But of course, the leaching of the nutrients is going to happen with the same plants. You added it with no dig. But what about the build-up of pests and diseases? That's where it does slightly fall back. Measure twice, cut once. Indeed. From have used tree wash, the bugs have died and produced more pears. From having used tree wash, the bugs have died and produced more pears. That's an interesting one. I've never actually had to use any type of tree wash. I've got to admit, I'm quite lucky. I don't suffer too badly from bugs, but it does make you think, should that be something I'm doing more of, using a tree wash? Excuse me. I try to be as organic as possible. So I only really want to use organic or natural materials. But I prefer, my hearing's just gone weird. I do prefer to try and bring in natural predators and things like that into my garden to do the work for me. Oh, time for another swig. Tree wash, bread, please. And Alice, I can't wait to see the little fruit trees start to grow in the spring. Fingers crossed. If it's your first year, Alice, I think you want to make sure or to remove any flowers, just to make sure it gets established. Apparently, it will produce better results next year. I've always been too impatient to do that, and I've let it through to the first year. But I know somebody's going to tell me off for not saying it. I'll leave that up to you. Right. I'm going to, if you want to zap in, just like Stuart did earlier, the link is going up in the comments right now, where you can call in on 07307 135 174. It should have gone up. Yes, it has gone up. There we go. Right. So I think we're going to start summarising this crop rotation thing. I think we've all established there's no right or wrong way. We all do something different. And the idea being try and grow something in a different space. You've helped me figure out my problem of how I can crop rotate my allotment by breaking it down into 4 areas. And that has made it a lot easier for me. And moving forward, I can see how it's going to work. What I've got to do now is crack on and build these extra beds. I've found somewhere that I can get some wood from quite cheaply now, so I'm going to be making the most use of that now. Adrian is saying, I forgot to say, my wife was readmitted to hospital last Monday, and after further tests, etc., came out on Thursday. Oh, mate, I'm so sorry to hear that. You've had 4 days without your wife around. I'm so sorry to hear that. But she is on the mend, and things are going to get better. Winter tree wash, Stuart Jackson, costs a tenner a bottle. I came tonight a crop rotator. I leave tonight a non-rotator. I've got to admit, I'm with Rebecca. I've always been in the theory of a crop rotator, but now I'm starting to question myself a bit more. I think my home pot is not going to be crop rotating, but the allotment is, just because I like to have it organised in my own way. What have we got? Wife update now with lots of drugs, lots of rest, angina confirmed, with blocked arteries, and talk to more consultants. Well, I hope she's on the mend, Adrian. At least we're at the best possible scenario. Richard, before I forget to ask, what's next week's subject? So next week, chit or not, I've brought some potatoes, and I've normally set those up for chitting. So I want to know, do you chit your potatoes or not? And then I think we'll develop that into what we can do for moving, how to grow potatoes, and your best tips for growing potatoes. Because it's that time of year, isn't it? It's that time of year when we start these sort of things. The depletion of nutrients does make sense. If you have no dig, you're adding those nutrients back in. All the best to Mrs. Adrian, indeed. All the best to your wife, Adrian. And thank you from Adrian. Yes, indeed. All the best to your wife and to yourself, Adrian. I really hope. I'll come to that in a minute. Yeah, all the best to you as well, Adrian. And I hope you're looking after yourself as well, because I can imagine you're quite sick with worry. Also, well done on being dry for 16 weeks. Dig well. Chits or chips? Indeed, chits or chips. Good question. It's chits. I know sometimes my enunciation could be a little bit better. It's quite echoey in this shed, which doesn't help. So chits might sound like chips, but I do like that. Also, I want to know what potatoes you are growing this year as well. Save that for next week. And fruit grease too, in case you use normal grease. Yeah. I like to chip my spuds, indeed, as well. Oh, spuds, just a subject I need advice on. Look forward to next week's. Yes, it's going to be a good one about spuds next year. Next week, sorry, next year. Last year you grew potatoes in straw. How did it go? I must have missed a podcast if you reviewed. It worked. It worked. I did potatoes in straw and potatoes in grass clippings, and they both worked. The grass clippings was better, but the straw did work pretty well, and the potatoes, more importantly, came out pretty clean. But the straw did need a lot more watering, I found. It did work, though. It did work. I will be continuing on that this year as well. Rebecca says she'll take the chips, please. Yes, I think when we come to the end of this year, when we harvest our potatoes, we're going to have to make some chips. It doesn't make a chit's worth of difference to chit or not, but I do for something to do. Indeed, this is what I want to find out next week, because I've got my own thoughts on it. I expressed this on the podcast. I need more than 300 characters per post to list my potato varieties. Well, do 3 posts then, Digwell. Your first earlies, your second earlies, and your main crops. Like me, I like to grow lots of different varieties, but I'll get into that next week. We've still got 12 minutes of this week's show, so don't get too far ahead of yourselves, but it's got yourselves, I hope, something to think about. Don't forget, if you've got photos of your potatoes from last year or anything like that, please do send them in. If you've got videos from your potatoes from last year or something you want to share about potatoes, send them in. Or any potatoes that you want to send in anyway. I really do need to make a little skit up for that sort of thing soon as well. 18 inches above soil level for the tree grease, Stuart. There we go. Yeah, a lot of advice about the tree grease and clipping back of that. Save your chips till next week. All the chips are coming out. I remember when I've always loved chips. When I was a kid, they were my favourite thing to eat, to the point that when I was in hospital having my tonsils out, I ate chips every day because, well, they were on the menu and nobody said anything. I was in hospital for about 3 days then as well. Back in the day when it was 3 days in hospital to have your tonsils out. I don't think they take tonsils out anymore, do they? 500 mil is better. Oh dear, 500 mil is better than 18 inches. Yeah, they're both exactly the same. Any other questions? I have no problem, Richard. Give you my number, Stuart Jackson, and I will help as much as I can. Well, this is what it's all about. Please do feel free to share any help and advice with anybody else out there. Oh, does anyone have any good potato recipes? That's something to try and say for next week as well. Good potato recipes. Anything. Oh, what am I doing? I've got next Sunday. It's the Seedy Sunday seed swap. So I'm going to go to that in the morning. Take Roxy for a walk. So I might have time to cook something up, potato based, that we can try and do. Try and eat next week as well. So yeah, please do send some good potato recipes in as well. This mouse is getting annoying. I had onion root fly on my allotment last year for the first time, devastated my crop. Yeah, that's annoying. I think it's going to get to the point with all these flies that decimate so many crops that everything is going to have to be covered. because it is so common. That's from David Williams, by the way. We've discussed carrot root fly and allium leaf miner, now onion root fly as well. It just gets worse and worse. Stuart says, thanks for the advice. What I mean about the group, amazing free advice. Potatoes in buckets or on ground, all will be revealed next week. Yes, homemade chips with bread. Oh, yeah. Good suggestion, Rebecca. Indeed, indeed. Yeah. Isn't 500mm and inch and a half longer than 18 inches? They're about the same, give or take. Looking forward to potato week. Yeah. Bread and real butter. Gotta be real butter. I've got to agree. Off to the drawing board after this from Digwell. I knew Digwell would be right in there with potato recipes. I mean, I'm thinking potato dauphinoise, potato chips, potato crisps, mashed potato, fish pie. Just a few ideas off the top of my head. But chip butty. Chip butty, please, for next week. Oh, yeah, I've got a craving for chip butty now. Digwell will have plenty of recipes. He's always cooking and he's always making me hungry as well, which is great. Sean James Cameron has joined. Good evening to you. When is the Van Life channel starting? It's started. It's called Nuggets Van Life. There's a video out last week, and I've hopefully, while I've been doing this show, this week's video has been published as well. And for those that don't know, I've started a new channel about my van life. Going out on trips in my van. I've done it differently from my YouTube channel because it's completely different to gardening and I want to keep things separately. Well done, Digwell. Hash browns from Ian Meadows. Indeed, hash browns. By the sound of a tree, it needed training when it's cut, Stuart Jackson. Hasselback. Write the name again as I couldn't find it. It's Nuggets Van Life. I can't find it to add a link at the moment. If anybody has any trouble, just email me and I'll send you the link to it. You'll probably see my van life in the YouTube videos when I start making them again. When I give what I'm doing with the YouTube videos for this, we'll make a change from the Chinese meal videos I've been posting. The Chinese videos have been making me really, really hungry. We had to have Chinese this week because of them. Potato and leek soup. If in doubt, 1 foot 6 inches. Oh God. So Nuggets Van Life, I've put that up in the thing. I couldn't find Van Life this week. I will send you the link, Ian, if it continues. I can't find it. It should be up there. It should be up there. I have lots of gophers. I am rotating many things to pots, buckets, and planters. The gophers even burrowed up underneath the fabric and plastic grow bags they just chewed their way into from the bottom. That's one of the things that I think we don't suffer from gophers. We get moles and we get rats and mice. It can be a problem. So it should come up. It should come up if you tap it into YouTube. Let me see if I can find the link quickly. Will this work? Let me see if I can find it. Oh. This keyboard isn't working quite as well as it should, but it's definitely under Nuggets, as in chicken nugget. Van Life is the name of it. It's got, I don't know why it wouldn't come up, unless it's such a popular channel or whatever. It's difficult trying to do this while talking, so that's why I don't really want to start looking for it, and it's not really related to gardening. So anyway, Digwell's got logging off because he's probably off to start looking at recipes for next week. See you next Sunday. Dig well. You stay safe too. Sean, I will send you the link to it as well. I'll do it, and I'll add it in. I'll add it. Yeah, I'll try and find the link for everyone. Alice McGowan has found it. Can I? How can I do this? How can I do this? Alice has found the link, and she's on Facebook. So, how can I? I can't. Can I? I'm just trying to see if I can. There's no way I can copy it, I'm afraid. But that's a link. I don't know if there's any way anybody can do it. Thank you very much for that, Alice. Anyway, we are coming to the end of this week's live show. It's been great to see you. Adrian, email me, richard@adventureground.podcast, so I've got your email address. And Oracle was saying to Sean, you need a van too, mate. Indeed he does. I think it'll go in nicely with what he's doing. Turbo Stream, it's definitely there. Just seen the next video uploaded tonight. There we go. I know it's definitely there. I can't find the link to it while I'm trying to chat to everyone. It's a bit difficult and a bit rude trying to tap in while chatting, I find. Anyway, it is there, so please do go check it out. It's like I say, it's not so much gardening. There may be trips out where I go to gardens, but I tend to feature those on my YouTube channel anyway. I am going to find the motivation to get back into making proper videos on the YouTube video. There's always so much more to do. But anyway, we're going to start wrapping up. We've got 2 minutes to go. So as we start, there we go. Dad's found it as well. Hello, Dad. And shared the link, which is also in the Facebook. So it's difficult to get in there. Tonight's viewing is sorted and Sean has found it. There we go. I knew it was there somewhere. Yeah, please do go check it out. And what you will see Roxy in there. In tonight's video, Roxy is in it. Rebecca is saying it was brilliant tonight. Roll on next Sunday. Yes, it has been good. This is what I learned. This chat tonight has helped me plan my allotment while chatting to you guys, and really has helped me out as much as it's helped you guys out, from what I understand. It's been good. It's been good to hear everyone's thoughts on crop rotation and how it all goes. So really grateful for all your conversation. Next Sunday, like I said, we're going to be talking about chit or not and growing potatoes. So please do get your thinking caps on and questions about growing potatoes, whether you chit or not. Get your videos, get your photos, and things like that. Oh, YouTube apparently deleted comments with links. Oh, God knows. And yeah, God knows why it does that. It's played with my mind trying to find it. If you can't find it, send me an email, richard@adventureground.podcast, and I'll send it to you. Richard, I like the format for this program. Lots of helpful information shared among everyone. It helps everyone. That's exactly what I want to do. That's exactly what this is all about, sharing information. Brilliant show again. We'll think about crop rotation. Indeed, I will be thinking about it. I figured it out what I'm going to do on the allotment. I've just got to move on with that. Right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks so much for joining me. Please take care. Back again next Sunday, like I say, potatoes, chit or not, and help with questions and stuff, and potato recipes. That's what I'm talking about. This is fantastic. Take care, and until next week, all the best. Where's the thing that I need? Well, I haven't set this up. I'm a bit behind. Apologies. There we go. Right. Take care, guys.